Welcome to this explainer on For the Plot Fridays. I'm so glad you're here today because we're looking at a concept that is just incredibly fun and, honestly, highly doable. This is all about what we get to do, not what we have to do. So, where did the year go? Man, it's a universal rut, isn't it? If you've ever felt like you're just running on a treadmill, waiting for the weekend, only for the weekend to vanish in the blink of an eye, yeah, you're in the right place. It usually hits us right around December. We look back and realize the weeks have just completely blurred into months. You try to remember what you actually did in March or August, and your mind just draws a total blank. It's a slightly terrifying feeling, right? That life is just passing us by very, very quickly. But why exactly does that happen?
Well, the reality of how we spend our time is painfully accurate. We've got a massive chunk dedicated to work, a necessary chunk for sleep, a surprisingly large slice for errands, hello, endless grocery store trips, and then the rest of our time is spent bouncing between the exact same three places. It's the literal definition of Groundhog Day. Our calendars fill up with these routine tasks, and because every single week looks exactly the same, our brains simply stop keeping track.
Which brings us to Section 1, Do It for the Plot, a small, repeatable fix.
We are so used to this heavy what I have to do mentality. The rigid productivity systems, the 5 a.m. clubs, those massive life overhauls that require just endless discipline and willpower. Well, throw that out. For the Plot Fridays totally flips that on its head. It is entirely about a what I get to do framing. You simply set aside just one day a week, traditionally Friday, specifically for doing something you haven't done before. This isn't another exhausting self-improvement chore to add to your endless to-do list. It's a delightful little gift you get to give yourself once a week. It's actually supposed to be fun.
The rule is literally just this. One action, once a week, chosen because it creates a story. You're doing it for the plot of your life. The goal here is simply injecting a tiny bit of deliberate novelty to break up that calendar blur we talked about earlier. And the absolute best part, it is 100% customizable to your comfort level, your schedule, and your energy. You don't have to scale a mountain or anything, you just have to do something out of the ordinary.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, you could try emailing someone you admire out of the blue. You could apply for that fellowship or program you're absolutely convinced you won't get, but hey, you just might, right? Maybe visit a new museum in a neighborhood you never go to, or call up an old friend you've lost touch with. The trick is to think of these not as tasks, but as exciting little mini adventures. Or, you could push it a bit further. You could ask a stranger on the street for a quick interview or conversation. You could look at an invitation you would normally immediately decline and just say yes to it instead. Take a random class completely unrelated to your work. Ask for that professional introduction you've been putting off forever. Whatever the action is, it just needs to put you out there and break the routine.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the science of novelty and how it actually slows down time.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds like a cute social media trend, but does it actually do anything? Yes, it absolutely does. The crucial point here is that your brain actually stores memories according to novelty. Think about it. If you do the exact same thing day in and day out, your brain basically decides there's no reason to encode those distinct days. They just merge into one giant blur, which is exactly why a whole year can feel like it just vanished. But when you introduce a novel action, your brain distinctively encodes that memory. Suddenly, that specific Friday stands out. You've given your brain an anchor, making time feel slower and much, much more memorable.
But the benefits go way beyond just memory. This brings us to a really fascinating concept, luck's surface area. This completely shifts how we view luck. It turns luck from this magical, random accident into a mathematical surface area that you can intentionally expand. You are quite literally engineering your own luck by exposing yourself to as many varied opportunities as you possibly can.
As the source material points out, the real trick here is to expose yourself to opportunities that feel ever so slightly out of your league. And why is that? Because if you keep doing this week after week, inevitably, some of these wild, out-of-your-league attempts will actually stick. And when they do, boom, all of a sudden, your league has just gotten bigger. Your entire reality expands based entirely on these tiny Friday experiments.
Next up, Section 3, Scaling Your Comfort Zone and Making It Yours.
I know that phrases like putting yourself out there or expanding your league can immediately trigger a sense of dread for some of us. It sounds loud, it sounds exhausting, and honestly, it sounds like a lot of social energy. But let's take a breath because this explainer is all about making this fit you.
I absolutely love this quote from the source. Scale the action to your own budget, not to someone else's highlight reel. Novelty is the point here, not performance. If you're introverted, neurodivergent, or just dealing with a week where your social battery is sitting at 0, the cost of a Plot Friday should still be small for you. A quiet, solitary first time is worth exactly as much as a bold public one.
To show how doable this habit really is, let's look at a quick comparison. If a high-stakes action, like asking a stranger for an interview, feels like way too much, check out a low-stakes option. Write an email today to someone you admire, but don't actually send it. Seriously, just drafting it still counts as novelty. You did something different. You engaged in a totally new thought process. That is absolutely a win for the plot.
Here are some incredibly accessible modifications you can use to make this work. You can go somewhere new, but just do it at a quiet hour instead of a busy one. If a phone call feels too expensive energetically, swap it out for a long, thoughtful message, or maybe a comment on someone's work. You can also take the novelty completely solo. Walk a new route, cook a new dish, visit a new library. If you do want to do something social, bring a friend as a buffer, or practice in low-stakes rooms, like an online community, before trying it in a high-stakes physical setting.
And perhaps most importantly, treat a recovery block afterwards as part of the plan, not a failure. If your Plot Friday action requires a lot of energy, actively schedule rest for Saturday morning. Remember, the whole goal here is consistency. Doing something small every single week beats doing something massive and dramatic once, getting entirely burnt out, and then never doing it again.
Which leads us to Section 4, engineering your luck and the compounding effect.
Here's how this actually compounds over time. Once you find that sweet spot, an action small enough that you'll actually look forward to it, that real "I get to do this" energy, something incredible starts to happen. Step 1, you pick just one small thing. Step 2, because you broke the routine, your brain encodes the memory and time actually feels slower and richer. Step 3, because you put yourself out there, new connections inevitably grow. And by step 4, over weeks and months, these opportunities compound. None of this works because any single Friday is magically life-changing. It works because the habit is cheap, it's easy to keep, and those tiny efforts stack up. Over a few months, you suddenly have a wealth of memories, more people who know your name, and a much, much wider net of possibilities.
This brings us to the core takeaway of this entire concept. You can't force luck, but you can keep walking into rooms where it lives. You get to choose which room you walk into next. Every Friday is a fresh invitation to open a new door, even if it's just a crack, and see what's inside.
So, I want to leave you with this question to ponder as we wrap up. What is your first one gonna be? Pick this Friday. Pick just one thing. Make it small enough, fun enough, and enticing enough that you will actually want to do it. Give yourself the gift of a new story. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what you do for the plot.